普2.0时代跟1.0的时候截然不同，不但关税战来的是又快又猛，川普对于乌克兰的态度也引发了台湾民众的忧心。一起看世界特别独家专访国际知名的美国哥伦比亚大学政治学教授黎安友，他是知名的汉学家，曾经荣获2013年柏林奖。著作包括了《没有安全感的强国》以及合作出版的《瑞实力制造机》。国内的观众朋友对他应该是十分的耳熟能详。黎安友教授在专访当中特别提到了川普倾向大国交易，重视平衡贸易多过于地缘政治，但是由于中国对台动武将会存在着巨大的失败风险，因此对中国国家主席习近平来说，最好的做法应该是先等着看川普要怎么出招，而没有必要急着对台湾动手。而台湾也应该要发展战略韧性，强化自身的防卫能力。台湾在美国国会仍然有广泛的支持，不必太过忧心。各位一起看世界的观众朋友，大家好！今天非常荣幸呢，能够访问到我在哥伦比亚大学的恩师，他是哥伦比亚大学非常知名的中国问题专家，他是我们政治系的教授黎安友教授，来到我们的节目现场。黎教授，非常的欢迎你 ，Welcome！
谢谢，很高兴跟你们的听众见面。
So my first question is, recently in Taiwan, the skepticism toward U.S. commitment to Taiwan has been rising. Some fears that the Trump 2.0 administration might not have a strong and firm commitment to protecting Taiwan, compared to former President Joe Biden. How would you interpret and what is your stance? For this kind of Trump's administration's attitude toward Taiwan?
The policy has always been strategic ambiguity, meaning that the U.S. did not clearly commit itself to what kind of intervention in a so-called Taiwan scenario. But the political commitment was to help Taiwan in some way. But the prospect of a war between China and the United States has always been something that's very scary for the United States. It would be a very big war. Or if Taiwan decided to blockade Taiwan, it would be a difficult operation for the United States to block the blockade. So the U.S. has always maintained a certain ambiguity, but it is different with Trump. In my assessment, Trump's worldview, and I don't think it's very conscious or systematic, but it's kind of his gut feeling, is that the United States is overextended. We're spending too much money defending, whether it's Europe, whether it's Japan, South Korea, or a place like Taiwan. He doesn't understand the strategic importance of Taiwan, which is kind of complicated, and the history of American policy toward Taiwan, because he doesn't have a lot of experience in foreign affairs, and he's not patient about listening to advice and intelligence from other people. And I think he feels that we can just settle the problems of the world between him, Putin, and Xi Jinping, the strong men of the world. Make peace, stop having trouble, fix the international trading system, bring industry back to the United States, everything's going to be good, which to me is very unrealistic. Trump may think there's a deal he can make with Xi Jinping that would save Taiwan. When Trump tries to settle everything with Xi Jinping and then he finds out that he can't settle everything with Xi Jinping, he has two choices. One is to say, this thing is too much trouble, I'm going to, in some way, I don't know how, reduce my commitment to Taiwan, send a message to the Taiwanese people, you deal with it yourself. Or he might be angry at Xi Jinping and say, okay, fine, I'm going to recognize Taiwan. I'm going to increase my commitment to Taiwan. And we don't know what he's going to do because he's very inconsistent.
When the reporter asked Trump the question like whether or not you will protect Taiwan if China invades, he doesn't give a clear answer. However, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was asked a similar question. For example, like at 2 a.m. in the morning, if you received intelligence indicating China is invading Taiwan, what would you do? He said that the United States will keep its commitment and react firmly, and China knows that. So here we see you have the president who is not willing to give an assuring answer, and you also have the Secretary of State who seems to give a more clear answer. How do you interpret that?
I don't think that Rubio is going to end up having much influence because Rubio is an experienced foreign policy realist. He's harder on China, but he's in the mainstream of foreign policy thinkers with experience and with understanding of the complexity of the world. And Trump doesn't care. I think in a Taiwan crisis, I think that the Pentagon will have its ordinary operations and be ready to fight. And the Congress and also public opinion will put a lot of pressure on Trump to say, what's going on here? Why are you so weak? He doesn't want to be weak. He doesn't want to fight a war, but he doesn't want to lose a war or look weak. So it's all to say it's very, very unpredictable. Yes. And I know that in Taiwan, even before Trump, there was Ime Lun. Yes. In all alliance relationships, US-NATO, US-Japan, US-South Korea, there is Ime Lun. This Ime Lun is a normal thing in an alliance, and it's very normal for people in Taiwan to have this question, and it's even more normal now that you have an American president whose thinking is not really strategic and whose policies are hard to predict. None of us really understands Trump. He's a mystery. And I think the Chinese do not really understand Trump. And they're waiting to see what is Trump 2.0. I don't think Trump understands the strategic importance of Taiwan to American interests. The Chinese might reasonably think that we can negotiate with Trump about Taiwan and explain to him, which China has said for a long time, Taiwan is China's Hexin Liyi. Trump, you gotta understand, this is our Hexin Liyi. And Trump can understand that because Taiwan is close to China and the population are Chinese people and so on. So if China says that to Trump and then Rubio and some of the other advisors say, no, boss, you don't understand, Taiwan is also a Hexin Liyi of the United States. And then if Xi Jinping says, look, we can make money together. Your people can invest, even you, Trump, you can invest in China and make a lot of money. It's hard to say where Trump would go. So therefore, I think Xi Jinping will wait and see for the right moment to talk to Trump, see if he can explain to Trump that we have to have Taiwan and it's not going to hurt. Xi Jinping will tell Trump it won't hurt your interests.
And now we see there's a strategic change for the Trump administration, that Trump wants to end the Ukraine-Russia war. There is a theory within the Republican Party. They want to save the energy and switch the focus from Europe to Asia-Pacific, potentially think that China is the biggest rival or the competitor of the United States. In that theory, people would call this like it's a reverse Nixon move, 联俄制中, Paul Putin with the United States, and then together we can cope with China. But do you think it works?
I think he sees China more in the light of another great power. You're a great power, I'm a great power, Russia's a great power. We should respect each other. So the Chinese long ago brought up this concept of Hexin Liyi, 新大国关系. And I think Trump doesn't think about 新大国, doesn't think about what the Chinese have said, but he has a similar concept of his own, is that great powers should just talk man to man, and each one can have a sphere of influence, and I'm not going to interfere in your sphere, and you don't interfere in my sphere. Panama is my sphere of influence, so you get out. So I think this is kind of Trump's view of China, is that we should have a 三角关系, yeah,
it's a
triangular relationship, but not to use Russia against China. I mean, I don't think he thinks that, and I don't think that's possible.
The political experts might think that in the long term, the two countries will keep like competing with each other. Do you see this trend coming, like for the next decades or 2 decades or?
I do think so, because on the one hand, I don't think that either power wants to have a war, and that's good news for Taiwan. I don't think Xi Jinping wants a war. You know, any war around Taiwan will cost China a lot. It could endanger Xi Jinping's regime even. They're not sure they can win that war. They might lose that war. Even if they win the war, there'll be tremendous cost and sanctions, and it'll impact China's international relations. And Trump doesn't want a war. And I also don't think that the two governments can reach a kind of stable agreement with each other where they settle all the questions, and especially the Taiwan question cannot be settled. Xi Jinping won't settle it and say, okay, you know, Trump might say to Xi Jinping, just agree to peacefully resolve, give up the military option. Xi Jinping will not give up the military option. So I do think long term it's a competitive relationship that neither side can win. Once you begin to change the international system that we had after World War II or after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there aren't only 3 actors. There are 193 countries, member states of the United Nations, plus Taiwan, plus the Palestinians. You know, so it's going to be very chaotic. Wow. But the U.S.-China relationship will be, I hope, I mean, the good news would be, it would be a many-decade competition.
But peacefully.
Without a direct war between the two sides, okay. At least.
Okay.